Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where today we're going to be taking a look at a knife that is so good, it's making me break one of my rules. And it's a pretty big rule. It's a rule that I'm pretty vocal about. I've bashed other knives for it, and this one, I'm giving it a bit of a pass because I really am thoroughly impressed with this. And before I get into this knife, I want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Blade Ops. Be sure to look them up for all of your knife and EDC needs, and especially for this one, hop on down in the link below and check it out, because I believe, to the best of my knowledge anyway, Blade Ops is the only retailer carrying this knife in stock right now. And I might be wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a fact, to the best of my knowledge. What we have here is some pepper spray. No, I'm just kidding. It kind of looks like pepper spray. What we have here is a very unique, very interesting, very well done OTF. Yes, we have an OTF here. Now, I know for some of you guys that immediately kills the opportunity to own this knife. Or, well, technically you could still buy it, you just couldn't carry it. But let's take a look at the blade. Ooh, look at that. What we have here is the SOS Knives OTF. A rather new brand, to the best of my knowledge. Again, I haven't heard a whole lot about them. Seem to be very new, but this here has made quite the splash for me because I have a lot of OTFs. And we'll take a look at some other ones here in a second after we do some size comparisons. But yeah, there is some very, very, very impressive features to this knife that I can't even say for some of my favorite OTFs. And the price is what really gets you here. Let's get to the price. Let's take a look at some overall specs on this knife right here. We have an overall length of 7.5 inches with a blade length coming in right at 3 inches, and a blade material, this is where we break the rule, D2. Yes, we are looking at D2 on this guy. Like I said, it's not perfect, but I tell you what, there is so many other things that really elevate it above that D2 factor. We have a drop point style blade with a flat grind, a handle length coming in at 4.37 inches, a handle thickness at 513 thousandths, aluminum chassis, handle, whatever you want to call it. Technically it's really a user of a left or right hand, because this could easily be deployed by a lefty or a righty. The only difference is it's set up for, right hand carry in the pocket. That's one little drawback. Sorry, lefties. But I tell you, I really think even some lefties would really appreciate this. If you couldn't tell from what you just saw there, very, very impressive. Weight of 3.6 ounces. This is coming from overseas, but it is actually assembled in good old Utah. So, hey, there's a little to be said for that. Price, $99. That's really where we're breaking my rule. Is I've always said in the past, 60 to 65 bucks is kind of my limit for D2 right now. But there's so much more than just D2 to factor into this price. I get it, D2 is D2, but that and that and that is what really, really, really impresses me with this knife. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. But first, size comparisons. Let's take a look at some other OTFs and see how it stacks up, because I have some OTFs. And let's pull out these two. These two are going to be the closest I have. The Guardian Tactical 035, which is still probably the best action of any OTF. I mean, it's very, very, very hard to beat. And here we go with our Axial Shift, which is also very, very impressive in its own right. We're going to play the drinking game with the word very again today, just because I'm feeling like it. But as you can see there you go. It's actually definitely shorter than both of them, but it's really more in the blade. If you move the handles down, let's line all the handles up on this yellow line here. As you can see, the handle of the Axial Shift is slightly longer than both of them, but it's very similar in overall width as well to the Guardian Tactical. So if you like your Recon 035s, this is one you can get for just a third of the cost almost. I mean, a fraction of the cost of that 035 there. So a lot to be said from a price standpoint. And if OTFs aren't your thing, but you're kind of thinking about getting one for the first time, let's pop out a couple folders. Here is the Civivi Elementum right there. And here we'll pull out Good old Spyderco Para 3, and if I remember right, I believe it is, yeah, well, a little longer than the Para 3, but very close to the Para 3. So there's your size comparisons. Now, let's get into this stinking knife, because it really truly is, and I mean this, it's one of the most impressive OTFs I've ever handled from an action standpoint, especially factoring in the price. The price, you know, for $100, what can you really expect for $100 in an OTF? Me personally, I don't expect much. I expect blade play. I expect, you know, ricketiness and racketiness and not the most solid feel, but this is a very, very solid knife. The actuator is very solid. There's no wiggle or wobble in it whatsoever. The blade, let's talk about this blade. First, let's talk about blade play, because that's a big thing with OTFs. The blade play is actually in terms of side-to-side blade play, this is less than any of the knives you saw on size comparisons. There is less side-to-side blade play than a Microtech. There is less side-to-side blade play than that Axial Gear, and there is less side-to-side blade play than that Guardian Tactical 035. Now, I will say there is probably the same amount of front to back play, maybe a hair more of the front back, but very nice lockup on this blade. Excellent lockup. Extremely impressive lockup, again, considering we are talking a $100 knife here. So in terms of the security and the actual lockup of this blade, I have zero complaints at that $100 price tag. I feel like this is a very well-built OTF, and the blade in general is just a very, very nice blade. One of the better cutting geometries for an OTF blade. We're looking at 19 thousandths behind the edge, and as you can see there, let's compare the width of the blade to the width of the Elementum, and maybe we'll put it over. As you can see, very, very close. What do we do here? How do we do that? Boom, gotta be smarter than the blades. Pretty much the same in terms of overall blade width when compared with the Elementum. Elementum has very good cutting geometry. Now, granted, it also has a hollow grind. I understand that. But still, 19 thousandths behind the edge, a pretty nice high flat grind. This is a bit of a slicer. There's very few OTFs that I can really call slicers, and I would put this in the slicer category, especially of OTFs. Like, this is a very slicey OTF if you're talking just OTFs. But just the blade shape in general, it just looks really, really good. Very, very subtle little drop point there. A nice blade shape with that little fuller up there. Kind of reminds me of this blade right here with the Kaiser Escort. As you can see, some real similarities there. I like that a whole lot. So nice comparison there in terms of blade aesthetics. And then you also have the option of a Tanto or a double-edged dagger. So 3 blade options, they all really do look good. And I actually really like the Tanto too. The Tanto is a nice Tanto shape. They're all gonna be linked below to check out the different kinds, but I really am digging this drop point. I think the drop point is probably my favorite. I think you guys know I'm pretty much a drop point guy in general. So very, very nice blade. You get into the handle and it actually feels very nice. The actuator is maybe, if there was one thing I was going to pick on with this knife, I wouldn't really pick on the actuator, but I would like to see it maybe just a little lower, maybe just, more of kind of like the actuator of the axial shift is really, I think that is the hot ticket. I think that's the best actuator in the entire industry, if I'm being completely honest. So you have a little more height on the actuator of this SOS, but again, very, very functional, works great, doesn't look at that. Oh, it's so good. Doesn't wear your thumb down. You can do kind of like, you can kind of use your index finger to pull it back. You can do your typical OTF deployment methods. Very, very smooth. The pocket clip is nothing special by any means, but it works. And the grip in the handle itself, it's somewhat smooth. It's a little smoother than like the aluminum handles on like a ProTech, but it still sits well in your hand. The angles are just right. There's enough, I wouldn't call it jimping, but texturing on the sides of the handle to where when the blade's deployed, and you kind of got it in this hand, this grip right here. It's kind of a modified grip to reach around the actuator. It still feels really good. No hot spots, none of that garbage. So yeah, feels pretty good in hand. The action is what makes this knife impressive. The build itself is impressive. The build is solid. It feels good. It looks good. Fit and finish is on point. No scratches, none of that crap. It looks good, but the action is really what elevates this for me. This is, in all honesty, I mean, just listen and watch. It's fantastic. It is a massive fidget factor, super smooth. It's got the perfect amount of tension in the actuator to where you don't feel like you're gonna, break your thumb pushing it out. Very smooth, very easy. It's just perfectly dialed in. And I'm really shocked I'm saying that for a $100 OTF. Usually on a $100 OTF, the actuator rattles, it's loose, it's crappy. The blade's a little kind of gummy on the way out. It's not super quick, but it's good enough to where you can justify spending 70 to $100 on it. This is next level action. I mean, this is, in all honesty, this is very close to the Shift and the Tactical 035 or the Guardian Tactical 035 Recon. I couldn't be more impressed with the action of this knife. And when I got it and opened it and took it out of the box, I thought, oh boy, what is this? Do I really have to make a video about this? And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. It is just a very pleasing OTF. One of the most pleasing OTFs I've ever handled for 100. For $100, it is the most pleasing. And when you really factor in price and put it up there with the Heretics, the Microtechs, the Guardian Tacticals, the Axials, it really does. It boxes way above its weight class. Way above its weight class. Very impressive. Very good looking. I have very little issue with it for $100. I know it's D2. I get it. Call me crazy, but the overall quality here and the action makes me think this is worth it. I don't have a problem with $100 for D2 on this knife, and this one's probably just going to stay in my collection because I don't really want to send this one back. This is really good. I would highly recommend checking these out, and I'm starting to have a feeling these are going to go quick because they're affordable, they look great, they're clean, there's no branding. Look at that. Very little. Outside of the D2, there's no branding. Just very nice, clean, sterile, great design, excellent OTF. The SOS knives, OTF guys, let me know what you think about this. Let me know if I'm off or crazy for my D2 thought here, but I don't care. I love this knife. It's great. It's staying in the collection. Really hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and until the next one, I'm out.